Good morning, welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, you know we are discussing computer science and precise topic is wireless network. In the last few lectures, we tried to understand the basic fundamentals of wireless network, the physical property. In the first lecture, then we went ahead and talked about the LAN, MAN and WAN. Today we go further and we'll try to understand the cellular network. How does it work? What is its property and what is its different aspects from the other networks. So we'll try to understand in detail today's lectures, and for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio the same resource person, Dr. D.K. Lobial. He teaches in computer science in Jawaharlal Nehru University. He is associate professor there, and his area of expertise is wireless network. So I think his knowledge will help us to understand this topic and will guide us how to study the wireless network and cellular network. So on your behalf, I welcome him for EduSet lecture. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Amarenji, and good morning, everybody. And this series, this is the fourth lecture, and we started with the fundamentals and the physical property, especially of a wireless network. Then we moved on to wireless local area network, especially focusing on 802.11, which is the very crucial protocol of data link layer, including physical layer for wireless networks, local area networks. Then we had two lectures on that. Now we are moving towards wireless wide area networks, and we are leaving wireless metropolitan area network. Probably it may be in future. And if you look at the diagram which I showed earlier, it clearly tells you how much to cover in wireless networks, from personal area networks, local area networks to wide area networks, and within each category there are a lot of systems to be discussed, and each system has its own working, and therefore we basically today focusing on wireless WAN, wireless wide area network, and the special focus will be on cellular networks, and other wide area networks are your satellite systems and your paging system, which probably will not cover. And so our focus only on cellular network today. And if you look inside cellular network, you can have multiple systems, and GSM, Global System for Mobile Communication, is one of the cellular wide area network, which is widely used in entire Europe and India also. So the tomorrow lecture will focus only on GSM, which the mobile phones you use most of the time, and you use GSM, that will be the focus of next lecture. But before going to what practically we have been using and we use today, GSM, but how the concept work on that. The fundamental concept of cellular network, which also makes a genesis or a basis for GSM technology. So that is what we are going to discuss today. Now, initially how it is started is we call a cellular or personal communication system. Why it is called personal communication system is, now earlier we have broadcast systems like your television, radios and other systems, or public telephone systems, but we do not have a personal. That means a person on move cannot have any device through which it can communicate at any given point of time. So therefore that means an individual can use the system for its use. So that is how the personal communication system evolved, and it has a large spectrum that how many systems are there, which systems are called personal communication system. So cellular networks are also part of a personal communication system. If you look at the current diagram here now, and if you look at this, what we are saying is on the yellow ellipse, what you see is it shows you that there is a public telephone network, public switched telephone network, because we call it public switched telephone network because each exchange is a switching system. So therefore all telephones what we use today, landlines basically I am referring to, or even at wireless local loop we use, they are part of public switched telephone network. Now in addition to that, we have a cellular system that consists of mobile stations and then base stations, which in normal terms in a layman language we generally refer to them as towers. these base stations, and then we have mobile stations, and then these base stations are either connected to a mobile switching center MSC or to a base station controller. So, there are two mechanisms, and then finally, the whole system is communicating by means of base stations and the central point, which is called mobile switching center, and that mobile switching center also is connected with the public switched telephone network. So, therefore, you can also have communication between a cellular or a personal communication system and a public switched telephone network, which has been existing before personal communication systems came into existence. So, you also need a compatibility and connectivity between the existing systems and new system, and then there is a mobility database which will contain all information about the mobility of a user, that where a user goes, where he is currently, and all this information that probably we will discuss in detail later on. But let us to begin with this architecture now. So, let us have few definitions which are very important for understanding of a PCS system or a cellular system, and gradually to global system for mobile communication. Now, one of the entity in this is what you call a mobile station, which is a station in the cellular radio service intended for use while in motion at a unspecified location. You may move anywhere, then you should have a handheld set, what we call a mobile station. It may be a simple phone, it may be at times a laptop, but here in cellular communication mostly we refer to a cellular phone. So, that is called our mobile station. Then you have a base station that is fixed at a point and in a mobile radio system and used for a radio communication, because it uses radio waves for communication. So, base station is communicating with a mobile station, right, and either that may be at the center of some coverage region and so on and so forth. And this base station consists of multiple channels, but the question is, each base station has a finite and limited number of channels available. So, therefore, if that is the case, that it has a fixed and limited number of channels available at a given point of time, therefore, only a limited or finite limited number of mobile stations can communicate at a given point of time to the base station. So, there is a limitation, right. And then we have a mobile switching center, what we showed in the diagram. It has multiple roles to play. One, I said, it provides you a connectivity between your cellular network and public switched telephone network. That is the fundamental aim, but one of the goals. But the fundamental work of this mobile switching system is to route or to route the calls between a mobile station to another mobile station. So, that means mobile station A may communicate with the base station, then this base station may transmit or may route this call to the mobile switching center, and the mobile switching center will determine where is the destination or the target or the receiving mobile station is, and to which base station that is connected with. So, that mobile switching center has to determine now how this call can be forwarded to the right destination or right or the target mobile station. So, the fundamental task of mobile switching center is of a routing of a call between various mobile stations or a pair of mobile stations which are engaged in communication. So, that is the fundamental aim. And subscriber, of course, a user who pays the charges for the use of the mobile stations, that is what you call a subscriber. And then you have a transceiver. That device is capable of simultaneously sending radio signals. So, transceiver is part of your mobile station, that too is your handheld device or a cell phone which you are using has a transceiver which does both the task of transmitting and receiving. So, transmitter plus receiver combinedly called transceiver. Now, another definition is they are called control channels. So, in addition to carrying your message or calls, telephone calls from one mobile station to a recipient's mobile station is not only the task that the system has to forward or carry the voice calls. In addition to that, the system has to do other tasks like call setup. That means the moment you dial a number, a connection has to be established, and only then you start talking. The moment the recipient picks up the phone or say okay, then only you start talking. Until that, the system try to establish a connection between the mobile station which dialed a number and the mobile station which was supposed to receive the message. So, connection establishment is one of the tasks, and that means when I make a call, I am making a call request to be established, initiate, and till I stop the calling or I switch off them or cut the call, or the recipient cuts the call, that channel or that call period is called a session, which is assigned between two stations, and one has to pay for that. But once one cuts it, that is over, but that period is called a session. And how do the call connection request should be transmitted? So, that means there are certain channels which are reserved only for the purpose of call setup. That means these channels are being used for controlling the entire communication, and therefore, these channels are called control channels. And other channels which are used for carrying the calls or the information, they are called forwarding channels. They are called data channels or voice channels. But there are two ways. Now, one is the voice is being transferred, a call is being transferred from a mobile station to a base station, and from a base station to a mobile station. When I make a call, the voice data or the call is being transferred from or going from my mobile station to the nearby base station. When the recipient replies, that is coming from my base station to my mobile station. So, now therefore, there are two channels required. One is one that carries the voice call from mobile station to the base station, other that carries the call from base station to the mobile station. That cannot be done by a single channel, because if only one channel is used, then you cannot have simultaneous communication at the same time. To have simultaneous communication at the same time, that means both parties are talking at the same time, you need two different channels. One is called forward channel, that means the radio channel used for transmission of calls from the base station to the mobile is called a forward channel. And the other channel which is used for the reverse purpose, that means it carries calls from mobile station to the base station, is called a reverse channel. So, it is a duplex channels links, so that simultaneous calls are possible, simultaneous conversation is possible. So, therefore, then we have three kind of links. One is a simplex link, where only one channel is used and that communication one way. If you remember walkie-talkie, which came in 80s in the US, that only one simplex means you look at a television or a radio, where the communication is only one way, that the television center or the radio center transmits the message or the programs to the homes, but from home you cannot call back. So, it is one way communication and only one channel is required, that is called simplex systems. And then you have half duplex, where probably one at a time. The example is a walkie-talkie, where what you do is you talk on the channel, then you say over, then the other party will start talking. So, one is talking at a time, but two-way communication is possible, but one at a time, that is called half duplex. Then what we are talking here in a cellular system or telephone system is a full duplex, where both way simultaneous communication is possible. It is possible because we are assigning two channels for a call. So, that is, but assigning two channels for a call will definitely increase the requirement for number of channels. So, in half duplex, what you have been done, you have been doing with the number of channels, you need double of that in full duplex, but the advantage is you have simultaneous two-way communication. Now, another notion in cellular network or personal communication system arises is a concept of handoff. What does handoff mean now? If you remember my earlier diagram, where I say you have a base station and you have a mobile station. And if it may happen that while I am engaged in a call, that means I call somebody and the connection is established, I started conversation and my conversation is going on. That means when I do this, my mobile station definitely is connected with the nearby base station. Now, while I am making my call, so my call are going from my mobile to this base station and I am on the move, maybe in my car. And it may happen that while on move, I am making a call or my conversation is on, but at the same time I may cross the boundary of the coverage of the current base station. So, that means I have crossed the boundary of the current base station and moved in the region which is covered by another base station. Now, my ongoing call which has been going through a base station A, now it is not possible because I have gone out of the range of that base station. So, I have moved into the other base station. Now, the question comes, I must immediately be connected with the currently available base station and without my knowledge that I have moved in another cell or another coverage region of the another base station, my ongoing call must continue without giving me any impression of my mobility from one base station to another base station. That is called seamless mobility of from one base station to another base station. So, this process of handing over an ongoing call from a base station to the other base station is called handoff or handover. So, for one station it is a handoff, that it is handing off the call, other is it is taking over, that is handover. So, handover or handoff are the same terms used exchangeably or interchangeably. So, that is one has to understand, and it is a very very critical concept in designing of a cellular network, because with two reasons. Number one, that no user or no subscriber will like that his ongoing call should terminate immediately or without completing it. That is what we call a call drop. That means, when an ongoing call is dropped or terminated in the middle or in the somewhere in the middle, we call it a call drop. It happens, as I said, because of handoff. When you are moving from one base station to another base station, it may happen that the base station in which you are currently moved in may not have a freely available channel, because all channels may be engaged. As I said, the number of channels allocated are limited, therefore, no channel is available, your call is dropped, and which you will never like to have as a user. So, therefore, designing of a cellular network, the handoff is one of the very very key parameter that one must take care of. Now, other is a roaming facility, that is called roamer, a mobile station which operates in a service area, then other than where it has subscribed its services. Now, say for example, I may be using a mobile phone of or a service of an operator operating in Delhi from X. X may be MTNL, X may be Airtel, X may be anything. So, say I have a connection from MTNL Delhi. So, I am a registered user of Delhi MTNL. It may happen today I move into Bangalore, where, so that means I am using the MTNL or BSNL, whatever service there is, the services of MTNL or BSNL in Bangalore, but I am not a registered user of Bangalore service. So, I am a registered, that is my home area is Delhi, but I have moved into, that is what you call roaming. Now, you should be able to use that service without knowing that you are in what position is, but of course, you have to pay. So, that is what you call such a mobile station is called a roamer, and the services should not be stopped, that is one. The other concept which you may be using is called page. Page is defined as a small brief message which will be broadcast over a service area. The moment I say over a service area, that means the page is a small message that will be broadcast by the base station. The base station will send a page which will go or received by all mobile stations currently available within the coverage region of that base station. Now, the question may arise that why it happens, why do you need a page? Now, by means of this paging, that the base station comes to know that is there any mobile station has moved into its region, new mobile station. The moment it moved into the region of a base station, through the paging it responds that I am there, and therefore, all the time the base station have a knowledge of which are the mobile stations currently working or currently available within the coverage region of this base station. That is why the paging message is used. Now, let us move, after understanding these basic definitions, which today and probably tomorrow in my lectures I will be referring to these terms again and again. So, that is why these terms are very important to be clarified in the first in the beginning. Now, try to classify these personal communication systems. If you look at this, initially sorry, we have cordless telephones, and then we have a cellular telephony. Cellular telephony can be seen as a higher tier, that means it comes at a little high level, and cordless telephones may be at a low tier. And then you have a wide area wireless data system where you can have your satellite and other things that or your cellular networks. And then you have a high speed local and personal area networks are equally important, where you have a LAN and you have a Bluetooth. They also give you a higher speed than what you cordless gives you. Then you have paging systems and your satellite based system and 3G systems we will talk. They are different kind of personal communication systems. Now, the same notion comes here. If you look at here, the handset what you use in your cordless can be seen as a mobile station, because you move in a small area around your house with the handset having in your hand and communicating. That cordless phone can be seen as a mobile station. And you have a device which you keep in your house and connected through a wire with your telephone, and that is called a base unit, and that can be seen as a base station which will communicate with this handset, and then it connects with your PSTN, your own telephone at home, and then goes. And this is what the small cordless phone works. And but how this cordless telephone what characterize? It's a low mobility. That means you can move around a small area around your house, your lawn, your rooms inside. So, the mobility region is very small and low mobility, small. You can't move with the car or you can't run, you just simply walk. So, low mobility, it is a low power consumption unit, it does not use much power, and it provides you two-way communication and have a high circuit quality and low cost equipment, and like your factors and long talk time, no handoff between base units. That means only one handset you use, you can't use multiple handsets at the same time, or if you use, it is not that you will move from one base station to another base station. So, this cordless telephony does not support or does not have a concept of handoffs with between the base stations. So, this appeared in the beginning as an analog device, and later on it moves to digital devices or digital system which you call CT, cordless telephone 2 and DECT standards in Europe, and so on and so forth. But our focus today is on not on cordless, but to start with that may be a good example. It provides a simple 32 kbps data rate with some pulse code, differential pulse codes, adaptive modulation and consumes low power for transmission of 10 milliwatt and low complexity radio signal processing, and so on and so forth, and gives you a delay of small delay of less than 50 milliseconds, and uses FSK and type division duplex channels. Now, our focus is more on cellular telephony rather than on this. Whereas, in contrast to that, why I call or we call this cellular telephony a higher tier is that it provides you high mobility provisions. That means you move from one base station to another move, and you may be moving and sitting in the car with a speed of 60 or 70 km per hour, So it provides you high mobility and it provides you wide range. It is not that your handset or your base station is inside your house and you are moving around. You are, in this case, your base station may be 5 to 8 kilometers away from your location. So wide range as far as this is concerned, plus the spectrum and the range of data rate may be very high. It provides you two-way voice communication, but not a very secure communication. So that is called tetherless, that is, it does not provide you a secure data communication. And it provides you a facility of handoff on roaming facility. That is why the concept which you defined earlier was very important. Now it was designed to provide you handoff and roaming, whereas the low tier systems like your cordless was not provided with the provisions of handoff and roaming. Yes, it provides you to integrate with the public switching telephone network, and it needs high transmission power around 2 watt. That is what the requirement of this cellular telephone is. Now look at the current diagram, and how this works is we have a hexagonal zones here now, and this is what we say a cell. That is what the term cellular comes into picture. So these are the towers, and then their coverage area what we have shown is in terms of a hexagon. So each hexagon has a tower or a base station in the center. So therefore any mobile station within a hexagon will be communicating with the base station situated at the center of that hexagon. So your mobiles may be even car, because you may be moving in a car, you may be walking, and so on and so forth. And then you have a mobile switching center, all base stations are connected with this mobile switching center. So that is what the architecture will work on, we will talk about. But so very complex circuitry and very cost, it has a lot of cost. That is what you have not many operators working on. And then now the fundamental question comes, why do we need cellular systems? So in designing of a cellular system, it is important to provide good coverage and service in a high user density area. Now when you move like a place like Nehru Place, which seems to be highly dense because there are high rise buildings as well as market where a lot of people visit, so it and very close buildings, and seems to be a highly dense area of users. So you must provide a good coverage. When I say good coverage, because one is high rise buildings in such a place will result into fading of a signal, that is by reflection, scattering, and what you call diffraction. That is what we talked in the first lecture. So then how to provide good coverage, that all the time the signal is available and provides a good service, is one of the notion. Now one of the very fundamental issue in using the concept of cellular was how to reuse the frequency. The moment I say how to reuse the frequency, that means the number of channels, as I said, are limited in number. So if you say, if there are only n number of channels in Delhi, and then you have only few stations, and if you give few channels to every base station, then the number of users you are going to support are very finite, whereas the number of users are very large. Why these channels are limited in number is because we have limited bandwidth or limited frequency spectrum available with us. So that is why the number of channels are fixed. Now therefore the concept comes, can't we reuse the same channels again and again? That means a base station at this location may be using certain channels, and the same channels may be used by some base station little far away from this place in Delhi itself, where the distance may be, that means the interference is not caused because the same frequency is being used here and same frequency is used at some other place. If these places are nearby, these base stations are nearby, then there will be interference. That means the base stations which are nearby must have channels of different frequency, whereas the base stations sufficiently far apart may use the same frequency, and therefore, they are sufficiently far apart, therefore, the interference will not occur, and that what is that sufficient distance is very important. If we are going to make that the base stations far apart, sufficiently far apart can use same frequency, that means I am reusing the frequency. Now, there is one important point that the two base stations which are using the same frequency and the channels are co-channels. That means, at a base station A you are using channels and the same channels are used by as base station B. The channels at base station B and base station A are called co-channels, right. And therefore, if the interference occurs, that is called co-channel interference. Why? Because the distance may not be sufficiently large. So, one designer have to make it sure that two base stations which are using the same channels, that means the co-channels must be separated sufficiently to avoid co-channel interference. And the geographic area and shadowing effect is important. Now, and therefore, the coverage of a cellular region is called a cell footprint. That means, the area covered by a cell phone, that means area covered means that if a cell, if a station, base station transmits a signal, all stations within a region will receive the signal, that is what we call a footprint. Now, this footprint, as we have shown in hexagon, but that may not practically will not be a hexagon, and practically probably could not be a circle as well, because the signal may not reach in all the direction to the same distance. Why? Now, in the beginning what he said is, because of reflection, diffraction and scattering, the strength of the signal reduces. Therefore, the reflection, diffraction and scattering may not be same in all the directions. Reason is, one direction may have a high rise building, the other side may not have. So, the side in which there is a high rise building, there may be reflection of a signal and diffraction of a signal, therefore, the signal will lose its power or the strength. Whereas, the direction in which there is no high rise building, the signal will travel probably will not have the reduction at the same reduction in the signal. Therefore, it will reach to the more distance before it diminishes or reaches to a threshold limit. So, therefore, one side it covers more area, other side it covers small area. So, the area coverage is a irregular region. So, the cells are irregular structured cells, they are not regular structured cells. But for this, and other important point is, because the number of users will keep on increasing, and therefore, the system must have a capacity to accommodate more and more user by probably designing new cells by way of frequency reuse, or even there are other mechanism of how to accommodate more and more users, right. So, now what we have taken is hexagonal cells with two regions. Number one, there may be some economic regions and as well as for some technical regions and theoretical regions, and one of the reason why do we take a hexagonal cell is, if you look at this picture, then we have a triangle, we have a square and we have a hexagon. Assume that the base station is in the middle or the central point of the triangle, it may be at the central point of the square, it may be in the central point of the hexagon. And if you look at radius r, that means from the center, the line joining to the center to a vertex, all these where two lines meet, that we call a vertex. So, the radius remains same, r for the triangle, r for the square and r for the hexagon are same. Now, one of the important point here is, with the same radius, the area covered by a triangle is 1.3 times r square, and the area covered by square is 2.0 into r square, and the area covered by hexagon is 2.6 into r square. So, for the same radius, the area covered by a hexagon is larger than a square and then the triangular shape. Therefore, the hexagonal shape is taken. If you have a base station in the middle, it will cover the larger area. So, that is how in the designing the hexagon shape is considered. Now, this is an example of frequency reuse. what we have said is, if you assume that you have s number of total channels available in a system, and all we assume duplex channels, that means one channel, one s means s by 2, one user will 2 channels. So, the total number of users will be s by 2. But if you divide this into n number of cells, if you look at the diagram, each base station we call a cell. If you divide into n cells, each cell must use a unique and disjoint channel. That means a cell A must use the channels which are different than the cell B if these two cells are adjacent cells. So, if you assume that each cell is allocated k channels, so that means S equal to k into n. We have n cells and each cell is allocated k channels. So, n cells will be allotted k into n, and I said total number of channels are s. So, there should be s equal to k into n. So, if number of channels are available are s and number of cells are n, then you can determine that how many channels each cell can have. So, if you have total 100 channels and you have 10 cells, then each cell can have 10 channels. That means at a given point of time a cell can support only 10 users. Then that is very small in number. Even if you take 100, that may be a very small number. Then you need a cell must cover 1000 number of users at a time. Then how do you do? That is what the reuse of frequency is very, very important. Now, and therefore, one terminology which we will be using frequently is called a cluster size. The n cells which collectively use the complete set of available frequency is called cluster size. What does it mean? The moment I said we have 100 channels, that is s equal to 100, and we have, say, I will put it not 10, we have 20 cells, n equal to 20, s equal to 100, therefore, k will be 5. So, 5 into 20 becomes 100. So, each cell is with 5 channels, so that no two cells use the same channel. They are using distinct and disjoint channels. Now, the group of cells, these 20 cells will make a group which are using different channels, is called a cluster. And then to reuse it, then we can again use a 20 cell cluster. They may be using same frequencies or yes, but the adjacent channel cells will not use the same frequency, and so forth. So, we have a cluster, then you can have number of clusters, so that we can reuse the frequency and support a large number of users. That is what the idea is. And look at this diagram, what we are trying to say here is, here in this diagram, if you look at A in the middle, A is using, say, 5 channels or some k number of channels, and adjacent to A, because it is hexagonal shape, there will be 6 more channels which are 6 more cells adjacent to A, 6 more hexagons close adjacent to A. So, therefore, 6 plus A, 1 in the middle, 7. So, these 7 cells will use different frequencies, different channels, k different, each k into these 6 must be equal to s, k into 7 will be s. So, these 7 cells is a cluster, and the cell at the middle is using A, is using some channels. The same channel are used by all cells where A is written. So, that is what I am saying is, I am reusing the frequency which is, or the channels which are used at A, and different A cells are using the same channels. So, you are reusing that frequency. That is what the diagram is all about. Now, now, one important point which I like to talk here is dwell time, the terminology. What does dwell time mean? Now, the duration, the time duration for which a user remains in a cell is called dwell time. Now, if I am at this location for last 1 hour, so my mobile is connected with the nearby cell. So, if I remain for 1 hour in this cell is a dwell time, and but this sometimes also referred to as the calling time when a cell is, when a phone is connected with the base is making a call, how long it is connected, probably some where it may be referred as dwell time. So, this is important, this statics is also important, because it will take you that how long a mobile station takes to have a handover. Now, the important point is, if we reduce the size of a cell, then probably you can increase the reuse of a frequency by, because my cell size is small. So, I can quickly have after some distance, small distance, the channels can be reused. So, by having a small cell, you are increasing number of channels, a number of clusters, and that is the number of users, supporting more number of users by reusing the same channels. But at the same time, the disadvantage, the other aspect is, the trade off is, because the cell size is small, therefore, the dwell time for any user may be small, because if it is at the middle of a cell, if it starts moving towards the end of a cell, it will cross the cell boundary faster, because cell size is smaller. If it moves with a speed x, if the cell size is larger, it will go out of the cell after a longer time. So, the dwell time in a larger cell is longer than the dwell time in a smaller cell. So, if the dwell time is smaller, the handovers will be more frequent. So, small cells, though, is giving you an advantage of more reuse of frequency, then more support of users, but at the same time it will result into high frequency of handovers, which probably may be a difficult task. So, probably you will not like to have more handovers to be handled. Now, therefore, the dwell time statistics is very important, and now how do you measure this? Now, in designing a cellular system, wherever an operator is installing its base stations, it must have an idea of the mobility of the users in that location. The statistics is very, very important. Now, if you are providing a cellular service in an area where the mobility is faster, or in an area very tight urban area where traffic is more, therefore, that mobility will be low. So, by that statistics you can design if the mobility of the users is very low, because if you go to a place, probably the users move very slow, most of the time they are stuck in traffic jam. Those who are on walk, they always move slow, but if you talk of cars and buses, they move slow because they get stuck in the traffic jam. So, in those places wherever the traffic or the user mobility is slow, probably you can have a small size cells, because the dwell time will be longer, because the mobility is low, therefore, the handovers and handoffs will not be very frequent. But if you go on a other area where the roads are clear and cars move very fast and the user mobility becomes faster, then to have a longer dwell time, to reduce the handovers and handoffs, probably you will like to have a larger cell size. So, the cellular system design also involves statistics where the user's mobility is also taken into account to measure dwell time, average dwell time, so that the cell size can also be determined. Now, if you look at this cellular architecture, and it has evolved over the period and from generation to generations. And the first cellular network which came into existence was in 1981 in US, and that was an analog based system. We did not have digital system support for digital system in cellular network at that time. So, between 80s and 90s, and that too is especially in 81, the first cellular system came in existence. That is what you call all systems of that period, we refer to them as first generation or 1G, and they were analog system based. They definitely, if they are analog systems, there are modulation schemes of, they were using of analog modulation, that especially was frequency modulation to have lesser noise impact. And the first system which Americans developed what is called AMPS, Advanced Mobile Personal Communication Systems. So, that was the first mobile system they developed, and that was only meant for voice traffic. It was not carrying any internet kind of traffic or data like your emails and web services, only for voice communication. And of course, it was frequency division, the channels were based on frequency division. So, it was using frequency division duplex FDD, that means 2 channels based on frequency division will be assigned to a user. Then that means what I in total said, it was a voice oriented system based on analog technology, and advanced mobile phone system was the first one, as well as the cordless system belongs to 1G. Then came 2nd G in 90s, probably in 1991, and the whole communication industry was revolutionized by digital communication. So, the 2G systems were also voice oriented systems, that means they only supported voice communication, no internet, no emails, no web surf, nothing. And based on, but the only difference was they were based on digital technology, and they are more efficient, and therefore, they required smaller size or less spectrum than 1G, and they use digital modulation, and also they use time division multiple access, and the channels were time division duplex and FDD both, and also to a certain extent CDMA, that is code division multiple access with FDD also were used. And that was what we call a 2nd generation or 2G systems. And one of the example of 2G system was global system for mobile communication, which you call GSM, which is used in Europe and Asia, and we also in India we use GSM mobile systems, which we will have a complete discussion or talk tomorrow on this GSM, but Americans do not use this GSM, and they use US the time division multiple access system for this 2G systems. So, they always try to keep their system different from the rest of the world. Now, since these 2G systems did not support data communication, only voice traffic, so it was enhanced to support transfer of data through the same system, and that was the digital system voice. Then we add low data rate data, that means low capacity data rate, and the channels will provide a small data in addition to your voice communication. That small size, small data rate may be your SMS, short message service, was initially introduced. So, in addition to your voice communication, you were able to transmit SMS, and that this is more than 2G, but it was not providing too much, therefore, it was called 2.5 generation, more than 2, but less than 3G. Now, since it provided a small data rate, SMS, and the demand and the applications were evolving over the period, where multimedia communications and especially data transfer was key aspect which was coming up. Therefore, this generation 2 and 2.5 were not sufficient to provide high data rate transfer. So, the 3G or 3rd generation came into existence, and yes, of course, since after 2G digital communication began, and 3G is also a digital communication technology, and it provides voice traffic plus high data rate, where you can probably surf your web, send your emails, and see your websites and so on and so forth, and it also provides you multimedia transmission, where you can see movies and videos, and that is it is high speed oriented systems integrated with that data services, and that is, and you also use code division multiple access here, and a lot of technologies came at that point of time. Here now, after that the 4G, and still in India we are looking for 3G, and the 4G target of 4G was it must come in the market in 2012, and it has started to be used or to be commercially used at a very low level in US, and the idea of 4G was to provide you high data rate of 10 Mbps, so that you can watch big movies, and at the same time the seamless integration of video, audio, and this, that one will never know that whether one is transmitting a video or a voice, all the time you have a very good data rate, and it must work also with internet protocol. That is what the idea is. Probably it also may support WiMAX systems, and that is the idea. Probably 2015 is the target where this 4G must be operational. Now, in addition to this 4G, the work is going on 5G, which the official terminology is not 5G, but the advancement in the technology are also being made, and it is also being referred to as 5G. And the target that we have a data rate of 100 Mbps, the 5G systems which will provide will be a data rate of 100 Mbps in a normal situation, but in a high video rate. Otherwise, it may normal course small distance, it may provide even 1 Gbps. That is what the target is, and the target is must come into the market by 2020. That is what we call 5G, and that is where the work is going on. And if you look at that, this diagram which I have shown here for 1G to 5G, 1G used to provide you a data rate of less than 1 kilobits per second. Now, in 1981, with a data rate of 1 kilobits per second, in 2G we reached up to 9.6 kilobits per second, and with 3G the target was 10 to 15 150 kbps and 2.5G. In 3G we have a target of 144 kbps to 2 Mbps, because 2 Mbps at a point of time was considered to be a bandwidth required for a broadband network. Though the definition of a broadband network is very difficult to arise, and what should be the data rate of a broadband. But one time it was agreed, or it was almost accepted, that anything above 2 Mbps will be called a broadband, but that is still used very loosely. Even 512 kbps data rate which used from MTNL as referred to as a broadband network today. Then that will reach to 10 Mbps in 4G and 100 Mbps, that is what the target is in 5G. And the mobility versus data rate is a very key research issue. Then if you want to provide high mobility, you need a high data rate, and then you will have a number of channels increased, and you can provide a service, and that will lead to intelligent antenna, where probably we can also think of that assignment and channels between the operators. That means what I am saying, that is what we call cognitive radio, that is what is the coming technology. Now, if you have a base station of Airtel, base station of MTNL, and base station of Aircel in this location, if I have a connection of MTNL, and if I do not get a channel from MTNL base station, can I get a free channel from the other base station of Airtel? So that is the assignment of a channel between different operators will be upcoming technology which will provide you better services and better mobility. That is what I will end here, and tomorrow we will begin with focusing on how GSM works. That's what. Thank you very much.
Okay, so how this evolution 1G to 5G?
Yeah.
So what are the major criteria which is put in this?
One of the criteria was a data rate. That means, as I said in the beginning, 1 kbps to 100 Mbps, what is the target is, because ultimately initially from voice communication, today we have reached to a situation where the applications use high quality video like SDD. If it comes SDD, probably we need a very high rate, high bandwidth. So if you provide that, so on your mobile phone you will be able to get a high density data, but high quality data. But at the same time, it's not only bandwidth data rate, but your handsets will also evolve accordingly. And this technology of your Intel technology from small some megahertz, now we are into gigahertz. So advancement of the hardware technology also, we have a high quality mobile handsets.
Okay.
That
So
is how the evolution is
So a
going.
kind of convergence we can say.
Yeah, kind of. That means also that we need to have a seamless integration of voice traffic, data traffic, and video traffic.
Okay.
While initially it was meant only for voice communication.
So, well, friends, with this word, we conclude lecture today. We'll have more discussion tomorrow on this issue. I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf, I thank Dr. D.K. Lovial for giving such a wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.